Welcome to DMOT Garage. We're back on the 64 double door panel van, but it's no longer a panel van because we have windows in it now. We're a bit, sorry, I probably should be doing the video like this. You can see we have the engine lid all put in. Now what I did do, I'm not sure if it was on camera or not, but I actually bent these pieces of metal around, welded them, and then I've just put a bit of Fibro-Lite, which is the fiberglass reinforcement, just around it, just to smooth it out. And then that can have a bit of body filler on top of that if we need be. I mean, it's all going to be covered in carpet anyway, so yeah. So on today's episode, we are going to be just finishing off some of the welding. So there's a few spots that need to be done. A couple of sections here that needs to be welded on here. We've got a little patch panel to weld in, and we also have some plug welds along the front here that have to be done too. So there's a couple of little plug welds in here and a couple down on this side just here that we couldn't quite get to. So we'll get all those knocked out and then continue on from there. So the underneath of this thing's looking pretty good. We've got a little bit of cleanup still to do in a few spots.
A few moments later.
Okay, so we've got a little bit more progress done. We had to just fix up this little section underneath here that was a bit weird. We've also finished that little part there, welded that in. And we've also plug welded up these little parts here. That's all done there. And up there, that's all plugged in as well. Just little tiny parts. We've got a little section here that we've got to make. I've got to plug these welds here up and then continue that little piece right along there. And then that will conclude the underneath of the chassis, and then we can start moving to the top, just finishing off some grinds. Oh, that's right, there is one more part I've got to put in, which is that piece right there, that little window that we've cut out. So we've got to weld that back in and call it good. All right, let's keep on moving. Right, hey guys, so we've done a little bit more progress, and what we're doing now is basically stripping back all the primer and going over any low spots that we can pull out with the dent puller. So we've got it set up here at the front. There's the unit. And I've been just going over this now, just trying to get things a little bit better so that we're not using a lot of filler. And you can see here, this was a big dent here, another one here, another one here. This one here was actually quite a large dent. And the way I sort of attacked it with the puller was to do little very small circles around it coming into the middle and just slowly pulling out, get rid of the tin canning, so that's gone. Same with this one. All that's all gone too. I pulled out the weld line a little bit better, so again we don't have to use a lot of filler on it. And same with our deleted indicator holes. This is a lot smoother now. That literally needs nothing over the top of it, so. And then of course onto this panel here will probably give us quite a lot of trouble because as you can see, has a lot of tin canning going on. This would have been the repaired area, I think, where they, took half this panel out and welded it back in. So we'll strip off the rest of the paint here and then we'll get stuck on it with the dent puller and just see what we can do and see if we can get a lot of that tin canning out. All right, we've actually started stripping the roof down and you can see we do have some issues. So this is, I suspect, been left with a tarp on it for a long time, and obviously it's sweated underneath it, and you can actually see the rust through the primer and the top coat, and this is the original paint, but it's pretty bad. Like, there's a lot of section. These are just the bits that I've gone and stripped, but you can see there's a lot of pitting in that, which is not good. So we're going to have to strip the entire roof back to bare metal, but I don't think you're going to be able to get rid of these pits. Now, what is that going to mean long term? We don't know, because we can only treat it with our phosphoric acid, the Rain-X Rust Buster, and go from there. So hopefully that will keep it at bay for, 10 years, 5 years, who knows? But yeah, that you really can see it is impregnated into the metal. Now, did it rust from the inside out? I don't think so. It's probably sweated. Mind you, if we have a look at the panelling on the inside, yeah, it doesn't seem to be too bad in here. So Yeah, we'll just have to do the best we can. That's sort of the next stage now, is obviously stripping this back. We want to treat the rust, get a coat of primer on it, and then we can start moving on to the rest of the body. Now we also have some 227 Sikaflex, which is just a sealant. We can use that for the cracks anywhere underneath in here where you just don't want water ingressing into areas. So, you know, we can go around all the corners and fix them all up. This is going to have belly pans underneath it, as I've spoken about it before. So this entire section in the middle here will be covered. So we're not really too concerned about that, but we will be putting some sealant around in these areas here. And also we will be hitting these areas with the stone guard before we apply the paint. So that's sort of the update at the moment now on the 64 double door panel van, which is an 11 window now. So we are going to continue getting this roof sorted and go from there. Okay, as the dust settles, we've done a fair bit more sanding, and as you can see, this part down here is not too bad. Here's where all the pits are. You can just see through this middle section. So we're going to have to just spend a bit more time on that metal there and see if we can try and get rid of that stuff. But yeah, she's pitted up at the front here. Just seems like this section here is perfect, all this metal here. They must have probably had something placed up in the middle here, don't know. Anyway, we'll keep going. It's going to take a while. This is probably a couple of hours already of just using these coral wheels. That's what you got to do. Let's keep going. Righto, on to some pulling here. That's reasonably level now, which is good. On to the next one. Okay guys, so what we're doing is just finishing off all the doors and cargo doors and just using the stud puller. And you can see these areas here where I've been working on, just to try to eliminate the lows as much as we can, so we're not putting a lot of filler on these things. So I've done the rear, you can see the rear hatch has been done, these cargo doors have been done. Pretty much any of these spots here where I've ground back the primer, and I've just pulled these dints out ever so slightly, like, you know, they're very light now. Same with the front doors there, those ones have been done. And what we're doing now is we've got the bus outside, and we're just going to, using our little sandblaster, this is the 20 litre one, we're just going to hit these areas here that need, there's just a lot of pitting, and the pitting is quite deep. So we want to attack that as best we can, because we obviously don't want rust coming through. This section here has already been done, and you can see it's been coated in the phosphoric acid as usual. And we're going to just do this section at the bottom here, and we're just really trying to attack these little brown pits. Now they're not super deep. This sandblaster will smash them out pretty good, so shouldn't have any issues there. So that's the plan. The rest of it's been Y-wheeled, most of it. You can see there's little skerricks of primer and a little garden spider just there as well. Yeah, so that's what we're doing so far, and we'll get this blasted, and then I can show you guys what it's going to look like afterwards.
2 hours later.
So what we have done, as you can see, chop, and same over here. Now, unfortunately, this size is 60 mils, and we need 62.5 for these to be correct for the early vintage brake lights. So we're going to have to just Dremel those out a tiny bit, and then we also have to add a little slot in them as well. So we'll just set up the Dremel quickly and get that done. So we've got our holes marked. 76.3. We'll drill those. And then now we're going to do some notching and we'll be good to go. Clean that up with a file and move on to this one. Righto, so what we've done, we've got a hole saw, and obviously the first one we just dremeled it out to get the size because it was already in there. Now we're going to knock these three out and then we are good to go. So hole saw, a bit of lubrication, earmuffs because it'll be loud and I want to protect my ears. Go time. Done deal. Now that one needs a little bit of cleaning up with the die grinder. So next will be when we get the gauges, we do some trial fitting, but at least actually the back sides of these are pretty sharp, so we'll clean them up with a flap disc and call it good. Righto guys, so after the phosphoric acid has been applied, you can see when you put a lot of it on, it does react a little bit differently and you end up with this sort of residual white pasty powder on there, which is a good thing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just we've put a lot on. So before we go putting primer on this now, we need to neutralise this with some water and vibe it back with the viber, probably with an 80 grit or a 60 grit, just to get it back to bare metal. And as soon as we do that, then we can prep, wax and grease, prep sole the entire roof, mask it all off, and then hit it with some epoxy primer. So that's next. We'll get it on its side a little bit more and start getting the preparation ready.
2,000 years later.
Righto fellas, as you can see, we're in Dexter's laboratory with all our plastic everywhere, just to keep the overspray off everything. And we are pretty much ready. We're wax and grease removed about 4 times, and we're going to get a very quick coat of primer. We'll just do 2 coats on this, and this is just to seal it up. And then we can move on to doing some body work. It has got some slight dints here and there that we're going to have to take care of with a bit of filler. Nothing too major. And yeah, we've got our little station set up here. We're using these cups that you just basically throw away, which work really well. So yeah, we've got our 4-to-1 primer. Let's get it mixed up and in the spray gun. All right, 1 coat done. Righto, so one of the next things that we need to do, we're going to start preparing the inside of the body for primer. So getting all this in here ready to paint. Now, before we do that, we want to get the seatbelt mounts sorted. Now, these are some 3mm plate that we're using, and these are going to be used for the front belt on the B-pillar here. Now, obviously from factory, we have the factory mount down here, and we also have 2 mounts inside on the floor down in there. So obviously for lap belts, but we're going to be putting lap and sash style or over shoulder. So we have to put a plate in up in this part of the B pillar here. So we're going to do a little bit of surgery. We're just going to cut a little flap and we're going to drill a couple of holes to plug weld it, and we're going to be welding these plates in. So we have to, for Australian standards, they've got to be a certain size and thickness. So obviously 3mm, and I'm just going to use the grinder now to round off these edges because they've got to have a 5mm rounded radius on the corners, and minimum of 50mm by 70mm, so we're covered there, and then we can get these welded in. And then obviously for the back, this is going to have a rock and roll bed back seat in it, so we're going to have to run 4 mounting points at the back here, just straight through the back wall here. So we'll get those in. Once we've got those plug welded in, then we can start preparing all inside here for some primer. So let's get cracking on these things. Righto, it's a little bit dark in here, but you'll get the idea in a second. So basically our plate is going to be welded behind the back here, in this position here. So what we need to do is make a little incision, and I'm just going to mark that. That's where that's going to go. So all we're going to do now is just make a little cut there and there, and we can just bend the flat back. We'll drill a couple of plug holes here, and then we're going to feed this in the back with a bit of wire, pull it against with the bolt, and then plug weld it in. So actually what we'll do first, we might just, we're going to cut into it. We're just got to be careful we don't cut. So it only needs to be a small incision. Okay. So that's all you got to do, and then we're going to just get a screwdriver and bend that piece out. And then the idea now is the plate, we're going to slide it in behind here. Once we've drilled our holes, we'll just weld a little piece of TIG wire on here so that we can drop it behind it, and then plug weld it against it. So we might just clean up this metal. I'll drill a couple of holes and we'll go from there. Okay, so you can see, got the welder going, cut it in there. I've drilled a couple of holes for our plug welds and our main hole for our bolt. Now this is our plate. You can see I've just welded the nut on the back side of it, and that's going to basically screw in like that. So we want to put this behind the back now, feed it in, and this is where it gets a bit tricky because you've got to open it up a bit, and of course you don't want to drop it inside. So what I do normally is just weld a little piece of TIG wire, which I've got here. Just weld a little piece of TIG wire, and then you can fish it down until you get it to the bolt, and then you can tighten it up and put it in. So we'll just quickly weld this together. Feed this in. There we go. Now, I want to just get the nut close. That's it. You can snap this off. Give that a weld across there and we're done. Righto guys, we're going to stick some primer onto the front of the nose just to stop this thing flash rusting, so let's get cracking.
All right, done.